Dr. Lisa Grant wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished her shift in the medical bay of the New Horizon. The ship was quiet, peaceful even. For the past 3 months, she had been working alongside Dr. Veltar, a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The Zentorian doctor was smart and careful, always following every rule in the Galactic Medical Handbook. Lisa missed the chaos of Chicago General Hospital. There, she had worked in the emergency room where every minute counted. Gunshot wounds, car crashes, heart attacks, she had seen it all. Here in space, most of her work involved treating minor cuts and stomach aches from different alien species. It was important work, but it felt slow compared to what she was used to. "Dr. Grant," Veltar said in his soft voice, "you seem restless again. Perhaps you should meditate on the peace we have here. In proper galactic medicine, we take time to think before we act." Lisa smiled. Veltar meant well, but he did not understand. On Earth, doctors learned to think fast and act faster. Every second could mean the difference between life and death. Suddenly, the ship's alarm system started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. Captain Brown's voice came over the speakers. "All medical staff to emergency stations. We have received a distress call from the luxury cruise ship Stellar Dream. They have 847 passengers from 12 different species. Environmental system failure. Multiple casualties. All medical teams prepare for immediate response." Lisa felt her heart rate increase. This was what she had trained for. She grabbed her medical bag and ran toward the shuttle bay. Veltar followed behind her, moving much more slowly. "Dr. Grant, please wait," Veltar called. "We must first review the proper protocols for multi-species emergency response. There are forms to complete and procedures to follow." "People are dying," Lisa said without stopping. "We can do paperwork later." When they reached the Stellar Dream, Lisa saw chaos everywhere. The ship's lights were flickering. Passengers were lying on the floor, breathing hard or not breathing at all. The air smelled wrong. Too much oxygen for some species, not enough for others. A small blue creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird was shaking on the floor. Its scales were turning white. Lisa had never seen this species before, but she could tell it was going into shock. She knelt down and checked its pulse. Too fast. Its body temperature was dropping. "What species is this?" she asked a nearby crew member. "Siltharian," the crew member said. "The environmental system is making the ship too cold for them." Lisa looked around and saw a heating vent nearby. She picked up the small alien and moved it closer to the warm air. Then she took off her jacket and wrapped it around the creature. The shaking slowed down. Veltar was still setting up his scanning equipment. "Dr. Grant, we must follow proper procedure. First, we scan each patient completely. Then we consult the medical database for the correct treatment for each species. Then we file a report with the medical board before beginning treatment. By the time you finish scanning, half these people will be dead," Lisa said. She moved to the next patient, a tall, thin alien with crystal-like skin. Pieces of its body were breaking off and falling to the floor. Lisa had read about the Vexhi species. They were made of living crystal that could crack under pressure changes. The ship's pressure systems were failing. Lisa could feel it in her ears. She looked around and found an emergency pressure suit. She put the helmet over the crystal alien's head and turned on the pressure controls. The cracking stopped. "This is highly irregular," Veltar said. "You cannot use equipment designed for one species on another species without proper testing." Lisa ignored him. She had already moved to her next patient. A group of Zentorians like Veltar were lying on the floor, their blue skin turning purple. They were having trouble breathing. The air had too much oxygen for them. Lisa found some cloth and made simple masks. She showed the conscious Zentorians how to breathe through the cloth to filter the air. It was not perfect, but it would help, until the ship's systems could be fixed. For the next 2 hours, Lisa moved from patient to patient. She used whatever she could find to help them. A power cable became a splint for a broken bone. A food container became a breathing device. A piece of metal became a tool to stop bleeding. Veltar kept protesting, but he also started watching Lisa work. He saw her save a Centaurian child by using a sonic screwdriver and some wire to restart its heart. He watched her help a group of aliens by giving them water with salt to replace what they had lost from dehydration. "How do you know what to do?" Veltar asked. "You have never treated most of these species before." "Bodies are bodies," Lisa said as she bandaged a wound. "Different on the outside, but the inside works mostly the same way. Heart, lungs, blood, the basic parts are similar. On Earth, we learn to work with what we have and figure things out as we go." By the end of the crisis, Lisa had treated over 50 patients. Most of them were stable now. The ship's engineering crew had fixed the environmental systems. Veltar looked at his scanner results. "According to my readings, 37 patients were in critical condition when we arrived. All 37 are now stable. This is impossible." "Not impossible," Lisa said, cleaning blood from her hands. "Just different from what you are used to." The Centaurian child's parents came over to thank Lisa. They had been angry at first when they saw her rough treatment of their son. Now they were crying with relief. "The human doctor saved our child," the mother said. "We will never forget this." Other passengers started coming over to thank Lisa too. Word was already spreading through the ship about the human doctor who broke all the rules but saved everyone. Lisa did not know it yet, but news of what happened on the Stellar Dream was also spreading through the galaxy. Some people were impressed. Others were angry. The Galactic Medical Board was already preparing formal complaints about her methods. But for now, Lisa was just happy that everyone was alive. 3 days after the Stellar Dream incident, Dr. Jake Morrison was sitting in his office aboard the human embassy ship when his communication device started beeping non-stop. As chief medical officer for all human doctors in the galaxy, Jake knew this meant trouble. The first message was from Admiral Zexhari of the Galactic Medical Board. Her voice was cold and angry. "Dr. Morrison, we need to discuss the dangerous actions of your Dr. Lisa Grant. Her behavior was unacceptable and violated 17 different medical protocols. We demand an immediate explanation." Jake sighed and played the next message. Then the next. 23 messages from different alien medical boards, all complaining about Lisa. But mixed in with the complaints were other messages. Patients from the Stellar Dream thanking the human doctor. News reports calling her a hero. Medical students asking to learn her techniques. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. Lisa was a good doctor, one of the best he had ever worked with, but she had a habit of ignoring rules when lives were at stake. This time, it looked like her rule-breaking had made some very powerful aliens very angry. Meanwhile, back on the Stellar Dream, Lisa was still working. The ship was heading to the nearest space station for full repairs, but some patients still needed care. She had been awake for almost 36 hours straight, but she could not rest while people needed help. Dr. Veltar watched her work with growing confusion. In the past 3 days, he had seen Lisa do things that should have been impossible. She had treated species that Centaurian doctors needed years of special training to understand. She made decisions in seconds that the medical board would spend weeks discussing. "Dr. Grant," Veltar said, "I have been thinking about your methods. They are very different from what I learned in medical school." Lisa looked up from checking on a patient. "Different how?" "You do not wait for permission. You do not check with supervisors. You just act. In galactic medicine, we have committees and review boards for every decision. It takes time, but it is safe." "Safe for who?" Lisa asked. "The doctors or the patients?" Before Veltar could answer, an alarm started ringing. A young Centaurian child, the same one Lisa had saved during the crisis, was having trouble breathing. His parents were screaming for help. Veltar immediately began setting up his scanning equipment. "We must determine the exact cause of his distress before we can proceed with treatment. I will need to contact the pediatric specialists on my home world." Lisa looked at the child. His blue skin was turning dark, and his breathing was shallow and fast. She had seen this before, not in Centaurians, but in human children. The signs were the same across species. "His heart stopped," Lisa said. She pushed past Veltar and knelt beside the child. "Impossible," Veltar said, checking his scanner. My equipment shows no cardiac arrest. Lisa pressed her ear to the child's chest. She could barely hear a heartbeat, very weak and getting weaker. She looked around the room and saw a sonic screwdriver that the ship's engineer had left behind. Next to it was a power coupling from the ship's engine room. "What are you doing?" Veltar asked in horror as Lisa grabbed both items. "Saving his life," Lisa said. She quickly opened the sonic screwdriver and connected it to the power coupling. Then she adjusted the frequency settings based on what she knew about Zentorian physiology. "You cannot use engineering tools for medical procedures," Veltar protested. "It is dangerous and illegal." Lisa ignored him. She placed the modified sonic screwdriver on the child's chest and activated it. The device sent controlled sonic pulses through the child's body, acting like a primitive defibrillator. The child's heart started beating normally. His skin color returned to its normal blue. He opened his eyes and looked at his parents. Veltar stared at his scanner in disbelief. "This is not possible. You used a tool designed for repairing engines to restart a heart. There are no medical studies on this procedure, no safety protocols, no approval from any medical board." "But it worked," Lisa said simply. The child's parents rushed over to hug Lisa. They were crying with relief and gratitude. The father spoke in broken galactic standard language. "Human doctor saved our son twice. We owe you our lives." Word of this second miracle spread quickly through the ship. Soon, alien crew members were coming to Lisa with questions about human medicine. How did humans learn to use any tool as a medical device? How did they make decisions so quickly? How did they treat species they had never seen before? Lisa found herself teaching an impromptu medical class in the ship's dining hall. She explained how human doctors learned to work under pressure, how Earth's dangerous environment forced them to be creative and adaptable, how they learned to see similarities between different types of patients instead of focusing only on differences. "Cond, Earth," Lisa said. "We have a saying, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. It means that common problems usually have common solutions. A heart that stops beating needs to be restarted, whether the heart belongs to a human, a Zentorian, or any other species." Dr. Veltar listened carefully. He was beginning to understand that human medicine was not primitive or dangerous. It was simply different. Where galactic medicine focused on perfect knowledge and careful procedures, human medicine focused on quick thinking and practical solutions. But not everyone was impressed with Lisa's methods. Back on the Galactic Medical Network, debates were raging. Some doctors called her techniques brilliant and innovative. Others called them reckless and dangerous. Dr. Sekthara, a respected Vulcani physician, sent a message to all major medical boards. "We cannot allow this Deathworlder barbarism to spread through civilized space. These humans treat medicine like warfare, attacking problems instead of studying them carefully. They will destroy the careful progress we have made in medical science." But the patients on the Stellar Dream disagreed. They started posting messages on the Galactic Information Network, telling their stories of how the human doctor had saved their lives. Videos of Lisa working spread through social media. Many people were starting to ask why their own doctors could not work with the same speed and skill. The ship's medical staff asked Lisa to teach them her triage system. She showed them how to quickly assess multiple patients and decide who needed help most urgently. She taught them to look for simple solutions first before trying complex procedures. By the end of the week, the Stellar Dream's medical bay was operating more efficiently than ever before. Patient wait times were shorter. Treatment success rates were higher. Even the alien doctors were starting to appreciate the human approach. But Lisa knew this was only the beginning. She had received a formal message from the Galactic Medical Board, ordering her to appear before a tribunal to explain her actions. They were calling her methods dangerous and unauthorized. Lisa was not worried about defending herself, but she was concerned about what this meant for other human doctors. If the medical board banned human techniques, how many people would die because doctors were forced to follow slow, careful protocols instead of acting quickly to save lives? As the stellar dream finally reached the space station, Lisa made a decision. She would not apologize for saving lives. She would fight to show the galaxy that sometimes the best medicine came from the most dangerous places. The Galactic Medical Tribunal was the most important court in the galaxy for medical matters. The huge courtroom was filled with representatives from dozens of different species. Cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting the trial across thousands of worlds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked into the courtroom wearing her best uniform. As head of human medical sciences, she was here to defend not just Lisa Grant, but all of human medicine. Elena had been a doctor for 30 years. She had worked in war zones, disaster areas, and the worst hospitals on Earth. She knew that human medicine was different, but she also knew it worked. The judges sat at a high table in front of the room. There were 5 of them, each from a different species. The head judge was Dr. Cathara, a tall alien with silver skin and 6 arms. Her voice was cold and formal when she spoke. This tribunal will decide whether human medical practices are safe for use in galactic space. We are here because Dr. Lisa Grant violated 17 medical protocols while treating patients on the Stellar Dream. The question is whether these violations should be allowed to continue. The prosecution lawyer stood up first. He was a thin, nervous alien with green skin and large eyes. Your Honors, I will prove that human medicine is dangerous and primitive. These Deathworlders treat patients like they are fixing broken machines instead of living beings. They do not follow proper procedures. They do not get permission before trying new treatments. They put patients at risk with their crude methods. His first witness was Dr. Sekthara, the Vulcani physician who had been criticizing human methods. She walked slowly to the witness stand, her red robes flowing behind her. Dr. Sekthara, the prosecutor said, please tell us about proper galactic medical procedure. Certainly, she replied in a high, thin voice. When we treat a patient, we first perform complete diagnostic scans, then we consult medical databases to find the exact protocol for that species and condition. We get approval from medical supervisors before beginning treatment. We document every step. This process ensures safety and accuracy. And what do you think of Dr. Grant's methods? Dr. Sekthara looked disgusted. She ignored every safety protocol. She used engineering tools as medical devices. She treated species she had never studied before. She made life or death decisions in seconds without consulting anyone. This is not medicine. This is barbarism. The prosecutor showed videos of Lisa working on the Stellar Dream. In the videos, she looked rough and hurried. She was using strange tools and moving from patient to patient quickly. To people who did not understand emergency medicine, it looked chaotic and dangerous. As you can see, the prosecutor said, this human doctor shows no respect for proper medical procedure. She treats patients like they are in some kind of primitive battlefield hospital. When it was Elena's turn to present the defense, she stood up slowly. She looked at the judges, then at the crowded courtroom. Your Honors, I want to tell you about a place called Detroit General Hospital. It is one of the busiest emergency rooms on Earth. On a typical night, doctors there might treat gunshot wounds, car crash victims, heart attacks, drug overdoses, and stab wounds. They have minutes to save lives. Sometimes they have seconds. Elena called her first witness. Dr. Ben Phillips walked to the stand. He was a big man with scars on his hands and arms. He had worked as a military medic during the Kepler station disaster. Dr. Phillips, Elena said, please tell us about battlefield medicine. Ben spoke in a quiet, steady voice. When soldiers are dying, you do not have time for long procedures. You use whatever tools you can find. You make fast decisions based on experience and training. You save who you can save and move on to the next patient. Every second counts. What would happen if you followed standard galactic medical procedure in a battlefield situation? Everyone would die while you were still doing your first scan. Elena's next witness was Dr. Kate Wilson, who had pioneered new surgery techniques in the asteroid mining colonies. Kate explained how human doctors learn to work in dangerous, resource-limited environments. We learn to see patterns, Kate said. A bleeding patient needs the bleeding stopped, whether they are human, alien, or anything else. A heart that is stopped needs to be restarted. A broken bone needs to be set. The basic principles work across species. The most powerful testimony came from the patients themselves. The Zentorian child's parents appeared by hologram from their home world. "The human doctor saved our son's life twice," the father said. "The first time she worked for hours while we all thought he would die. The second time his heart stopped. And she brought him back to life in minutes using tools that were not even medical equipment. We do not care about her methods. We care that our son is alive." Other survivors from the stellar dream told similar stories. An elderly Siltharian spoke about how Lisa had kept him warm when the ship's heating failed. A group of Vex-high crystal beings explained how she had improvised pressure suits to stop their bodies from cracking. "The galactic doctors wanted to follow procedures," one patient said. "The human doctor wanted to save lives. I know which one I prefer." Elena presented statistics showing that Lisa's survival rate during the stellar dream crisis was 97%. Traditional galactic medicine had never achieved results like that in a similar emergency. During cross-examination, the prosecutor tried to attack the human witnesses. "Dr. Phillips, is it not true that your battlefield medicine results in many deaths?" "Yes," Ben answered honestly. "But the alternative is that everyone dies. We save who we can save. That is better than saving no one." "Dr. Wilson, your mining colony techniques are very crude, are they not?" "They are simple," Kate replied. "Simple often works better than complex when people are dying." The prosecutor then made a mistake. He asked Elena directly, "Dr. Rodriguez, do you really think these primitive human methods are better than thousands of years of advanced galactic medical science?" Elena stood up and looked directly at the judges. "Your Honors, I have a question for this court. When your child is dying, do you want a doctor who follows every rule perfectly, or do you want a doctor who saves your child's life?" The courtroom fell silent. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The prosecutor tried to respond, but Elena continued. "Human medicine evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. We learned to adapt, to think quickly, to use whatever tools we could find. We learned that sometimes the most important rule in medicine is knowing when to break the rules." She pointed to the patient testimonies. "These people are alive because Dr. Grant cared more about saving lives than following procedures. She saw similarities between species that your medical databases missed. She used tools in ways no one had tried before because she was willing to take risks to save lives." Elena's final argument was simple, but powerful. "You can judge our methods all you want, but you cannot argue with our results. We save lives. Is that not what medicine is supposed to be about?" The tribunal announced they would take a break to consider the evidence. As the courtroom emptied, Elena knew that this decision would change medicine across the galaxy forever. Either human methods would be accepted, or human doctors would be banned from treating alien patients. Outside the courtroom, news reporters were already calling it the most important medical trial in galactic history. Some called Elena's defense brilliant. Others said she was defending dangerous practices that would get people killed. But in hospitals across the galaxy, young doctors were already starting to ask questions. Why did their procedures take so long? Why were they not allowed to improvise when patients were dying? Why could human doctors achieve results that seemed impossible? The trial was just beginning, but the galaxy's medical establishment was already starting to change. The tribunal had been talking for 3 days when the emergency alert came. Dr. Alex Turner was sitting in his office on Earth when every communication device in the room started screaming at once. As Director of Human Emergency Medical Services, Alex had seen many disasters, but this was different. The research station Gamma Centauri had exploded during a weapons test. The blast was so huge that it damaged 12 other nearby stations. Over 1,200 people from 15 different species were hurt or dying. It was the biggest medical emergency in galactic history. Alex watched the news reports with growing alarm. The explosion had created every type of injury imaginable. Burns, broken bones, radiation poisoning, decompression injuries, and dozens of other problems. The local hospitals were completely overwhelmed. They had maybe 50 doctors trying to treat over 1,000 patients. The Galactic Medical Board was in chaos. Their careful procedures required them to send specialists for each species. But it would take weeks to get all the right doctors to Gamma Centauri. Most of the patients would be dead by then. Alex's communication device rang. It was Admiral Zexhari from the medical board. She sounded desperate. "Dr. Turner, we need help. Our traditional response system cannot handle this many casualties. The tribunal is still discussing your Dr. Grant's methods, but we cannot wait for a decision. People are dying." Alex looked at the emergency report streaming across his screen. "What do you want from us?" "Send your best doctors. Use whatever methods you think will work. We will deal with the politics later." Alex smiled grimly. "I can have a team there in 6 hours." He immediately contacted 20 of the best human emergency doctors in the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Grant was still at the tribunal, but he called her too. Within 4 hours, they were all aboard the fastest medical ship Earth had ever built. When they arrived at Gamma Centauri, the scene was worse than the reports had described. The main medical facility was a disaster zone. Alien doctors were standing around arguing about procedures while patients lay dying on the floor. Some doctors were still waiting for permission to begin treatment. Others were trying to follow protocols that took hours to complete. Dr. Amy Foster, a trauma surgeon from New York, looked around in disbelief. "They are letting people die while they fill out forms." Alex gathered his team together. "Listen up. We are going to do this the human way. Set up triage areas by injury type, not by species. Treat the most critical patients first. Use whatever tools you can find. Save lives first. Worry about regulations later." The human doctors spread out across the facility like a well-trained army. Dr. Chris Martin started setting up a field hospital using techniques he had learned during the Mars colony disaster. Dr. Amy Foster began teaching alien nurses how to do quick patient assessments. The breakthrough came when Dr. Steve Adams, a pediatric surgeon, encountered something no one had seen before. 2 patients, one from each of 2 different species. Both needed organ transplants to survive. Their organs were damaged beyond repair. The problem was that cross-species organ transplants were considered impossible. Every medical textbook said that organs from one species could not work in another species. The biological differences were too great. But Steve looked at the 2 patients and saw something the textbooks had missed. Both species breathed oxygen. Both had similar blood chemistry. Both had hearts that pumped blood through their bodies in the same basic way. "Dr. Adams," said Dr. Lingtar, a local alien doctor, "you cannot perform surgery between species. There are no protocols for this procedure. It has never been attempted." Steve was already preparing for surgery. "Then I guess we are about to find out if it works." The operation took 4 hours. Steve used techniques he had developed while working in remote Earth hospitals where resources were limited. He had to modify some of the procedures, but the basic principles were the same as any organ transplant. When both patients woke up with functioning transplanted organs, the alien medical staff could not believe it. Steve had done something they thought was impossible. Word of the successful cross-species transplant spread quickly through the medical facility. Other doctors started asking Steve to teach them his techniques. Soon, alien doctors were learning human emergency surgery methods. Dr. Lisa Grant arrived on the 2nd day and immediately took charge of the most critical cases. She set up a teaching station where she showed alien doctors how to treat multiple species using the same basic principles. "Look for similarities, not differences," she told a group of young alien medical students. "A blocked airway needs to be cleared whether the patient is human, Centaurian, or Vexhi. Bleeding needs to be stopped. Broken bones need to be set. Focus on what all living things have in common." By the 3rd day, the human team had completely changed how the medical facility worked. Instead of separate treatment areas for each species, they had areas for different types of injuries. Instead of waiting for specialists, general doctors were treating any patient who needed help. The results were amazing. Patient wait times dropped from hours to minutes. Survival rates went up dramatically. Alien doctors who had been skeptical of human methods were now asking for training. Dr. Veltar, who had come to help with the emergency, watched Lisa work with growing admiration. 3 months ago, he had thought her methods were dangerous and crude. Now he was learning from her. Dr. Grant, he said during a break, I owe you an apology. I thought human medicine was primitive because it was different from what I learned. But I see now that different does not mean wrong. Different can be better, Lisa replied. Your careful methods work well when you have time and resources. Our fast methods work well when people are dying, and you have to use whatever you can find. The emergency lasted for 2 weeks. When it was over, the statistics were incredible. The human-led medical team had achieved a 94% survival rate. Traditional galactic medical procedures would have saved maybe 67% of the patients. More importantly, the alien doctors who had worked with the human team had learned new skills. They were faster at making decisions. They were better at improvising solutions. They were more willing to try new approaches when standard procedures were not working. News of the Gamma Centauri success spread across the galaxy faster than any medical journal article ever had. Videos of human doctors performing impossible surgeries were shown on every news network. Stories of alien doctors learning human techniques became the most popular content on the Galactic Information Network. Medical schools across the galaxy started receiving requests from students who wanted to learn human emergency medicine techniques. Hospitals began asking how they could train their doctors in human methods, but the most important change was in the alien doctors themselves. They had seen that medicine could be more than just following rules. They had learned that sometimes the best way to help patients was to break the rules. Dr. Sekthara, the Vulcani physician who had testified against human methods at the tribunal, sent a message to the medical board. I was wrong about human medicine. I still believe in careful procedures, but I have seen that emergency situations require emergency methods. Perhaps we need to learn from these Deathworlders after all. As the human medical team prepared to leave Gamma Centauri, Alex looked around at what they had accomplished. They had not just saved lives. They had changed how an entire galaxy thought about medicine. The tribunal was still meeting, but Alex knew the decision had already been made. The galaxy had seen what human medicine could accomplish. There was no going back to the old ways. The age of adaptive medicine had begun. The courtroom was packed when the tribunal reconvened. News reporters from every major world in the galaxy were there. The Gamma Centauri disaster had changed everything. Now everyone wanted to know what the judges would decide about human medicine. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat at the defense table, feeling more confident than she had in weeks. The emergency response had proven everything she had tried to say with words. Human methods worked. They saved lives. The galaxy had seen the proof. The prosecutor stood up first. He looked nervous and tired. The success at Gamma Centauri had made his job much harder. Your Honors, he said, the Gamma Centauri incident was certainly impressive, but we must remember that these emergency methods are dangerous. Yes, they worked this time, but what about next time? What happens when human doctors make mistakes because they are moving too fast? What happens when their crude methods fail? He presented charts and statistics trying to show that human methods were risky. He argued that the high success rate at Gamma Centauri was just luck. He warned that accepting human medicine would lead to chaos in hospitals across the galaxy. We have spent thousands of years developing safe, reliable medical procedures, he said. We cannot throw all of that away because these Deathworlders had one good day. But when Elena stood up to respond, she had new evidence. During the 2 weeks at Gamma Centauri, careful records had been kept of everything the human doctors did. The numbers told a clear story. Your Honors, this was not one good day. This was 2 weeks of consistent superior results. Human doctors treated 1,247 patients during the emergency. We lost only 73 patients, and most of those were already beyond help when we arrived. Elena presented detailed medical records showing how human techniques had saved lives that traditional methods would have lost. She showed videos of alien doctors successfully using human emergency procedures on their own patients. The prosecution says our methods are dangerous, Elena continued. But the only dangerous thing is refusing to use methods that work. How many patients have died while doctors waited for approval to begin treatment? How many lives could have been saved if doctors were allowed to adapt and improvise? The judges listened carefully, but everyone knew the real drama would come from the witnesses. The prosecution called Dr. Uthmani, a traditional Galactic Medical Board member who had not been at Gamma Centauri. Human medicine may appear successful, Dr. Uthmani said, but it violates fundamental principles of civilized medical practice. These Deathworlders treat medicine like warfare. They make hasty decisions without proper consultation. They use unauthorized equipment. They ignore established safety protocols. This approach may work in primitive conditions, but it has no place in advanced galactic society. Elena's first witness surprised everyone. Dr. Veltar walked slowly to the witness stand. The same Centaurian doctor who had worked with Lisa on the Stellar Dream and later at Gamma Centauri. Dr. Veltar, Elena said, you have worked closely with human doctors. What is your opinion of their methods? Veltar looked uncomfortable. As a Centaurian, he had been raised to follow rules and respect authority. But he had seen too much to deny the truth. When I first met Dr. Grant, I was horrified by her methods. She ignored procedures I had spent years learning. She made decisions without consulting supervisors. She used tools that were not designed for medical purposes. The prosecutor smiled, thinking Veltar was supporting his case. But, Veltar continued, I watched her save 37 lives in one day. I saw her restart a child's heart using an engineering tool. At Gamma Centauri, I learned her techniques and used them to save patients I would have lost using traditional methods. Veltar paused and looked directly at the judges. I still believe in careful procedures when there is time for them. But I have learned that emergency situations require emergency responses. Human doctors understand this. They have taught me that sometimes the most compassionate thing a doctor can do is break the rules to save a life. The courtroom was silent. Hearing such words from a traditional Centaurian doctor was shocking. Elena called more witnesses. Dr. Steve Adams explained how his cross-species organ transplant techniques were now being taught in medical schools across 3 different star systems. Dr. Amy Foster described how alien doctors at Gamma Centauri had quickly learned human triage methods and were already using them in their own hospitals. The most powerful testimony came from patients. The Centaurian child Lisa had saved twice appeared by hologram. Now healthy and happy, he spoke directly to the judges. The human doctor saved my life when her own people said her methods were wrong. If this court decides that human medicine is illegal, who will save the next child like me? And elderly Siltharian spoke about how human doctors had created new treatments for his species' unique physiology. A group of Vex-high crystal beings explained how human emergency techniques had been adapted to treat their silicon-based injuries. But the biggest surprise came when Dr. Sekthara, the Vulcani physician who had originally testified against human methods, asked permission to speak again. Your Honors, she said in her high, thin voice, I have spent the last 3 weeks studying the Gamma Centauri medical records. I have reviewed every procedure performed by human doctors. I have interviewed alien medical staff who worked with them. She paused, looking uncomfortable with what she was about to say. I was wrong. Human medicine is not barbaric or primitive. It is simply evolved for different conditions. These Deathworlders learn to practice medicine in situations where seconds, matter, and resources are limited. They develop techniques that work under pressure. They learn to see patterns that cross species boundaries. Dr. Sekthara turned to face the packed courtroom. I still believe in careful procedures and proper protocols, but I have learned that there is a time for careful study and a time for immediate action. Human doctors know the difference. Perhaps it is time we learned from them. The prosecution had no response to this. Their main witness had just switched sides. Elena made her final argument simple and direct. Your Honors, the evidence is clear. Human medical techniques save lives. They work across species. They can be taught to alien doctors safely and effectively. The question is not whether our methods are different from yours. The question is whether you will allow doctors to use techniques that work. The judges talked for 2 hours before returning with their decision. Dr. Kithara, the head judge, stood to read the verdict. This tribunal finds that human emergency medical techniques, while unconventional, have proven effective and safe when properly applied. Rather than prohibiting these methods, this court mandates their study and integration into galactic medical practice. The courtroom erupted in cheers and arguments. Some people were thrilled, others were angry, but the decision was final. Furthermore, Dr. Kithara continued, this tribunal establishes the Adaptive Medical Initiative with Dr. Lisa Grant as director. This program will teach human emergency techniques to medical professionals throughout the galaxy. 6 months later, Dr. Lisa Grant stood before the first graduating class of the new Galactic Emergency Medicine program. The classroom was filled with young doctors from dozens of different species, all eager to learn human techniques. When I started working in galactic medicine, Lisa said, I was told that human methods were too crude for civilized space. But I learned something important. Medicine is not about being civilized or following rules perfectly. Medicine is about saving lives. She looked out at the diverse group of students. Zentaurians sat next to Vulcani. Siltharians worked alongside Vexhi, all of them united by a common goal. You will learn procedures and protocols in this program, but you will also learn something more important. You will learn to think quickly, to adapt to unexpected situations, and to use whatever tools you have available to help your patients. You will learn that sometimes the most advanced medicine comes from the most basic principle. Do whatever it takes to save a life. In hospitals across the galaxy, the changes were already visible. Emergency response times had improved dramatically. Survival rates for critical patients had almost doubled. Medical schools were adding human techniques to their standard curriculum. But the most important change was in the doctors themselves. They were no longer afraid to improvise when standard procedures were not working. They were willing to try new approaches. They understood that rules were important, but saving lives was more important. Dr. Veltar, now studying human emergency medicine on Earth, sent a message to Lisa. You taught me that medicine is not about perfect procedures. It is about perfect outcomes. Thank you for showing us a better way. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most advanced civilization was not the one with the most rules, but the one that knew when to break them. Human medicine had shocked the galaxy, but in the end it had made everyone better doctors. The age of adaptive medicine had truly begun.